Welcome to Chapter 3, Lesson 1, where we are going to learn how to create a new document and work in the Setup Master page. So when you finish this lesson, this is what your document will look like, but you will use this for the remaining lessons in Chapter 3. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to File and then Open. And we are going to open a document from Chapter 3 as an example. So we're going to go to this PC, then go to the handout drive, all the way down to the bottom to Business Handout, and then go to Shonifer, Computer Graphics 2, Chapter 3, and 3-1, and double click or hit Open. Once that opens, we're going to go into presentation mode and look at some of the final products that we can create in InDesign. Once 3-1 is open, what we're going to do is we're going to go into presentation mode. And we can do that by holding down the Shift key and W at the same time. And that's going to turn our document into presentation mode. Now we can use the right and left arrow keys on our computer keyboard to view all of the pages in the document. So if you see, if we hit the left and right arrow keys, it will move throughout the document. So to exit out of presentation mode, we're going to hit Escape in the top left-hand corner of our document. And then we're going to hit Tab to show the panels and then show the panels page. So if we hit Tab again, now we can see all of our panels and our panels page. So now what we're going to do is we are going to select the first page, which is Document 2, and it is a left-hand page. And you can see down here in the corner, our page number that we're on is page 2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to view spread 4-5. So we can open up our page panel and then select our master spread of 4-5. So you should be able to see your 4-5 pictures, and that would be pages 4 and 5, of course. So that's just an example of what our final document is going to look like, is the reason I want you to look at this. And then also just see how your pages panel works when you have two pages on the same panel. So you can go ahead and close out of this file, and then the file that we are going to create is going to look something similar to what I have here just for lesson 1. So I'm going to close out of this for now because what we need to do is we need to create a new document and adjust our preferences. So verifying that no other documents are open, we're going to go to Edit, and then Preferences down here at the bottom, and then we're going to select on Units and Increments. Once we select Units and Increments, we are going to click the horizontal list arrow, which is C horizontal, and then our list arrow, and make sure that it is in inches, and then do the same to our vertical. Make sure that it is in inches. And then we can hit OK. Now we're going to go to File and New to create a new document, and we're going to select Document under New. We're going to type 10 in the number of pages, so we're going to leave the document preset and print alone. We're going to make sure that our Facing Pages box is checked, and that verify that the start page is number 1. So we want it to start on page number 1. Then we are going to type a 6.25 in our width box. So highlighting 6.25, and then we can hit the Tab key to go to the next one. And we're going to type in 4.75 in height. And then we are going to change the orientation to landscape. And remember, if you hover over it, tells you which one it is. So we're going to select landscape. Then we're going to enter in number of columns that we want on the pages. Is going to be 2. And then we're going to verify that the getter text box is 0.1667, which ours is, and hopefully yours is 2. Now down here we have this little button that will allow us to make all of our settings the same. If it's not selected, they can be different. If it's selected, they're all going to be the same. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our top margin is 0.5, and then if we just hit Tab, it should change all of our margins. So now everything should look exactly the way it does on my screen, and then you're going to hit OK. Once it opens, we're going to go to File, and then document setup so that we can make any changes to a file after it's open here in the document setup. This is also how you'll be able to tell whether you created a document in inches or pixels or something else by the document setup and then what numeric indicator it gives you on your width and your height. But for now, what we want to do is we want to change our start page to start page of 2. So we're going to delete that 1, put 2, and then hit OK. And now we're going to have a start page of 2, and we should have all the way to 11 pages because we're going to have 10, and they should be facing each other. And you should also see 2 columns in each of these boxes. Now we're going to save this as last name, comma, first name, and this is going to be called setup. So you are going to go to File, Save As. You're going to find your H drive under this PC and name it as last name, comma, first name, setup. And I already have mine saved, so I'm not going to save over it. But you will hit save. I'm going to hit cancel, but you will hit save. So now what we're going to do with our document is make some adjustments to our margins and columns after we have created the document. So I want you to come to your Pages panel, and if yours is minimized, you're just going to open it up and double click on the A master. If you don't double click on the A master, the changes are only going to be made to one side of the pages and not to both. So now we're going to go to Layout, Margins and Columns, and the first thing we're going to do is adjust our margins to 0.125 and then hit Tab. And because we have that setting that has all of our settings match, we won't have to change each individual. Now I want you to make sure that both your margins on both pages have changed. If not, you're going to hit cancel and double click on A master again. If they did, then you're good to go. And then we're also going to change it to have 3 columns. Once again, you should now see 3 columns on both of the pages. When you're done with that, you're going to go ahead and hit OK. Now we're going to learn how to add guides to a master page. So we need to make sure that we're in the Workspace Essentials. So at the top of your screen on the right, if in this drop-down box you don't see Essentials, I want you to make sure that Essentials is selected. Now you're going to double click on the A masters in the pages and note that both master pages in the menu become blue, and then note that the page in the lower left-hand corner of the document is listed window list A master instead of just a page number. So if we double click on this, it no longer says an individual page number, it says A master, meaning both of them. So now if our rulers are not visible, we need to turn them on. Mine are, but if yours are not, you're going to go to View, and then it should say Show Rulers here. If they're already on, it's going to say Hide Rulers, so I don't need to do anything here. Now I want to make sure that I have the selection tool active, either by clicking the selection tool or hitting V on my keyboard. And I'm going to come and hover over my ruler, and then I'm going to click and drag. And so I have this blue little guide that's going to show up. But the first thing you're going to notice is that it only goes across one page. We want to create a guide that's going to go across both pages. So let's go ahead and undo this move so that we can have a guide that goes across both pages. So we can either go to Edit and undo our guide at the very top, or we can just hit Control Z. And I like Control Z because it's a quick way to undo a step that we've just done. So now if we want to make a guide go across both pages, you're going to hold Control on your keyboard and then come up to that ruler again, and you're going to click and drag down and just release anywhere. And now you'll notice that this guide goes across both pages. So if I have the guide selected in my control panel, I should be able to manipulate my options. So what I want to do is I want to change the Y on this to 2.5. And then if you hit Enter or Tab, you'll notice now that the guide is moved down to the 2.5 on my vertical ruler, but it's a horizontal guide. Now we're going to add in a couple more rulers. We're going to drag a second guide, so holding down our Control key, coming up to our ruler. Once our cursor changes white, we can click and drag down and then release. And we are going to change this one to a destination of 3.5 on our Y axis. So 3.5, hitting Enter, and then noticing now that our guide moves down to 3.5. So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to go to Edit, and then we're going to go to Preferences again. And then we're going to select our guides and pasteboards. Units and increments. So once we've selected our units and increments, and notice you can move around to the same types of preferences in here, we're going to make sure that under our rulers, the origin is set to spread. And as long as it's set to spread, we're going to hit OK. So now we're going to drag a vertical guide from the left side of the screen. So we're going to go until our selection tool turns white, and then we're going to click and drag a vertical guide. And now what we can do is we can change its location on the x-axis. And we're going to change that to 8.35 and hit enter. And you'll notice now that our guide is over here at 8.35. And then using our selection tool, we are going to click on our first horizontal guide, which is that one at 2.5, and then we're going to change the location of it to 3.4, so typing in 3.4 and hitting enter, and now you'll notice that our guide has changed. So we're going to add a third horizontal guide, making sure we hold down Control, going up to our ruler, having our cursor change white, and then clicking and dragging down and releasing. And then we're going to change the location of this one to 3.25. So now you should have 3 guides, horizontal guides at the bottom. So I want you to go ahead and save your work while we move on to the next section. So we are going to create placeholder text frames. So what we're going to do first is we're going to verify that our fill and stroke colors at the bottom of the Tools panel are both set to none. So if you hover over these little boxes, you're going to see what is called fill and what is called stroke. And we want to make sure that there is a line through both of these colors, meaning that they are set to none. If they're not, what we can do is we can open up our swatches panel and we can select a none fill for those different fill and stroke colors. But now what we're going to do is we're going to take our type tool or select T on the keyboard, and we are going to drag and create a small text frame anywhere in the rightmost column of the horizontal guides. So these are the horizontal guides, and we want to create a text box in the right one. So we're just going to click and then drag and just create a little text box here. So now we're going to drag the bottom handle down until it snaps to the upmost horizontal guide. So to be able to do that, we need to go to our selection tool by hitting V on the keyboard or selecting our selection tool. So we're going to click this and we're going to drag it until it snaps to that right guide and then down to that bottom guide. And then let's go ahead, drag it over to the left guide and then make sure it's aligned with the top. So now we have all of our text box aligned with it. But what we're going to do is we're going to also be able to use our control panel to adjust the size of it. So I want you to take your selection tool and click on this bottom guide box that would allow us to adjust it. But instead of clicking and dragging, we're going to come over to the height option. And we're going to change the height to 1.375 and then hit enter. And now you'll notice that that changes the height of that box for us. So what we're going to do is we are going to make a copy of this box now. So we're going to hold down Shift and Alt on our keyboard, and then we're just going to click and drag up so that we have a copy of that box. So now you'll see we have 2 text boxes that we've created. So go ahead and save your work and move on to Chapter 3, Lesson 1, Part 2.